They won't be much fun to watch, but at least you'll be able to pronounce their names.
He was the kind of funny that didn't just make you laugh, it made you feel. Before Eddie, before Pryor, before all the legends we know today, there was one man who kicked the door open for every black comedian that came after him. His name? Redd Foxx. The man who turned pain into punchlines, struggle into swagger, and poverty into pure comedy gold. But here's the crazy part. The same man who made America laugh for decades died broke, owing money to the IRS, on a TV set that was supposed to be his big comeback. How did a comedy king end up losing everything? Let's get into his story right now. Let me know where you're watching this from in the comments. Grab yourself a warm drink, maybe a cup of water or tea, sit back, and let's start this journey together. Before he was Redd Foxx, he was John Elroy Sanford, a kid from Street Louis who learned early that laughter was the only thing that didn't cost a dime. Born in 1922, life didn't hand him much. His father, Fred Sanford, left when he was just a baby, and his mother, Mary Carson, raised him and his brother by herself. Times were rough, man. They moved to Chicago's South Side, and that neighborhood full of noise, jazz, and hustle shaped everything he'd become. Redd grew up during the Great Depression, when survival wasn't a choice. It was the only option. He washed dishes, shined shoes, and ran errands just to keep food on the table. The boy learned how to make people laugh just to keep spirits up in his family, in his block, even with strangers. That sense of humor was his shield, you know? His way of saying, I may be broke, but I ain't broken. School wasn't really his thing, the streets were his classroom. Chicago's South Side was full of rhythm and rhythm makers, musicians, hustlers, preachers, and jokers. That's where he found his voice, soaking up stories and slang, mixing them into a sound that felt real, not polished, not fake. People in the neighborhood started calling him Redd because of his reddish skin tone, and Fox came later, a slick stage name that fit his sharp wit. But before any spotlight, he was just a skinny kid hustling to survive. He didn't dream of Hollywood. He dreamed of a hot meal, a roof, and a reason to laugh again. By the time he hit his teens, Redd already understood what most grown men didn't, that pain and laughter live in the same house. And for him, that house was home. When Redd hit his late teens, he wasn't chasing fame, he was chasing rent money. Hustling was second nature. He did odd jobs, ran errands, and even got gigs in small restaurants just so he could eat while working. That survival instinct became part of his comedy later. He used to joke, "Man, I got jobs just so I could eat for free, that's called business sense." And that was pure Redd Foxx, turning struggle into a punchline. In the late 1930s, he joined a little singing and comedy group called the Bonbons. They weren't big time, but they gave him his first taste of the stage. Small clubs, smoky rooms, people drinking and laughing, that's where he learned to read the crowd. Redd discovered that humor wasn't about being clean or polite, it was about being real. Around that same time, he crossed paths with a young man named Malcolm Little, who the world would later know as Malcolm X. Both were hustling, both broke, both street smart. They became friends, two young black men trying to find their place in a world that didn't see much value in them. Years later, Malcolm X even wrote about Redd in his autobiography, calling him Chicago Redd. That friendship left a mark on both of them. Redd hit the Chitlin Circuit, a network of clubs and theaters that booked black entertainers when mainstream America still shut them out. There, he sharpened his timing, learned to control the crowd, and built his style loud, raw, unapologetic. He didn't care about rules or censors. He talked about life as he saw it: sex, struggle, race, and survival. That's where the seed of Redd Foxx really took root. He realized comedy could be a weapon and a shield. It could make people forget their pain or make them laugh right through it. By the time he left those smoky clubs, Redd wasn't just another hustler, he was an artist, crafting truth out of chaos. By the early 1950s, Redd Foxx was already a legend in the underground comedy scene, a name whispered in smoke-filled bars and backroom clubs. He wasn't on TV, wasn't on radio, but word of mouth kept spreading. People would say, "You heard that wild dude from Chicago? Man, he's filthy, but he's funny." And that's exactly how Redd liked it. He didn't care about being clean, he cared about being real. He started performing regularly in small Los Angeles clubs, places like the Brass Rail and the Zanzibar. The crowds were a mix, Servicemen, hustlers, jazz cats, and everyday folks just looking to forget their troubles for a night. And when Redd got that mic, man, it was over. His delivery was raw, lightning fast, full of rhythm and attitude. He could roast you, charm you, and make you cry laughing all in the same breath. In 1956, Redd dropped something that would change comedy forever: Laugh of the Party. It was a live album recorded right in the club, full of his raunchy, street-smart jokes. Nobody had done that before. This wasn't TV-friendly humor, this was real-life storytelling, with all the grit and truth included. That record sold like crazy in the black community and opened the door for every comedian who ever thought about recording a live show. But even with his growing fame, the mainstream still acted like he didn't exist. He was too dirty, too raw, too real. TV networks didn't want a man who talked about sex, money, and race with no filter. Yet the people loved him because he was them honest, funny, and unafraid. Redd knew the streets better than the studios, and that's where his power came from. He said once, "I ain't no Hollywood star, I'm a people star," and that line defined him. While Hollywood pretended not to see him, Redd was already building a cult following that would later make him unstoppable. By the late 1950s, he wasn't just another nightclub comic, he was the heartbeat of the underground, the bridge between old-school vaudeville and modern stand-up. And soon, the world was about to catch up to him. When Redd Foxx hit Las Vegas in the early 1960s, everything changed. Vegas was the entertainment capital of the world. Sinatra, Sammy Davis Jr., Lena Horne, all the big names played there. But Redd? He came to shake it up. He brought the raw energy of the Chitlin circuit to the Strip, and people didn't know what hit them. His shows were packed with laughter, cussing, and real talk about life, love, and hustlin'. Redd wasn't polished like the Vegas crooners, he was authentic. He didn't wear a mask to fit in. He made the room adjust to him. And the wild part? He started drawing the same audiences as the big headliners. Everyone from soldiers to celebrities came to see him work that stage. That's where he met younger comics like Richard Pryor, who would sit in the crowd just to study him. Pryor later said, "Redd Foxx was the blueprint. Money was rolling in, but so were the problems." See, Vegas loved Redd's comedy, but the entertainment industry still wasn't ready to give a black comedian full respect. Contracts were shady, pay was lower, and opportunities were limited. Redd made big cash, but he spent big too fast cars, fancy suits, and helping out every friend who needed a loan. He had a huge heart, but no one ever taught him how to manage wealth. He also faced racism head-on. Some clubs didn't want a black headliner unless the crowd was mixed. Others refused to put his name on the marquee. But Redd didn't let that stop him. He said, "If they won't give me a seat at the table, I'll buy the damn table." By the late 1960s, Redd was a certified star among black audiences, but still underrated in mainstream America. He'd recorded dozens of party albums, influenced a generation of comedians, and created a new language for stand-up, one built on truth, rhythm, and defiance. The stage had become his church, and every night he preached the gospel of laughter. But while the crowds screamed his name, Redd was still waiting for that one big break, the moment that would take him from smoky clubs to every living room in America. And that moment was just around the corner. By the early 1970s, Hollywood finally came knocking, and this time, Redd Foxx was ready. NBC was developing a new sitcom based on a British show called Sanford and Son. Producer Norman Lear, who had already struck gold with All in the Family, needed a lead who could bring raw humor and real heart to the American version. And there was only one man who could do that, Redd Foxx. When Sanford and Son premiered in 1972, it changed television forever. Redd played Fred Sanford, a junk dealer in the Watts neighborhood of Los Angeles, grumpy, sharp-tongued, broke, but full of pride. His son Lamont, played by Demond Wilson, was the straight man to Redd's chaos. Their chemistry? Perfect. Every line felt real. Every argument felt like a conversation you'd overhear in your uncle's living room. And that theme song, the funky bass line by Quincy Jones, became one of the most recognizable intros in TV history. The show was fresh, unapologetically black, and funny as hell. Redd's catchphrases, especially, "You big dummy," and "I'm comin', Elizabeth," his fake heart attack bit, became part of pop culture overnight. Week after week, Sanford and Son pulled huge ratings, sometimes even beating All in the Family. It wasn't just a sitcom, it was a cultural revolution. For the first time, millions of Americans saw a black family that wasn't written as a stereotype, but as real people, flawed, hilarious, and proud. Behind the scenes, Redd was running the show his own way. He insisted on bringing his real-life friends into the cast, people like LaWanda Page, who played Aunt Esther. They'd known each other since their early club days, and their fiery on-screen banter became legendary. The show gave jobs to other black actors who'd been overlooked for years, something Redd took pride in. But Redd's success didn't make him forget where he came from. He used to say, "Sanford and Son is just my life," with a laugh track. That junkyard represented every hustle, every scrap, every time he turned nothing into something. The show ran for 6 incredible seasons, becoming one of the highest-rated sitcoms of the decade. It made Redd Foxx a household name and a millionaire. But behind that laughter, tension was already building over contracts, pay, and respect. Hollywood had finally opened the door, but Redd was about to find out that even at the top, the game wasn't fair. By the mid-1970s, Redd Foxx was living the dream, or at least what looked like it. Sanford and Son had made him rich and famous. He had the cars, the mansion, the jewelry, and the respect he'd been chasing since the Chicago days. The same man who once waited tables just to eat was now one of the highest-paid TV stars in America. But as Redd would later say, money don't change the game, it just changes the bills. Redd knew his worth, and that's where the trouble started. NBC was paying him less than white actors on other hit shows, even though Sanford and Son was carrying their Friday night lineup. Redd wasn't about to play that game. He walked off set, demanded a raise, and told the network flat out, "Pay me what I'm worth." Some called him difficult, others called him bold. But Redd called it self-respect. Eventually, NBC gave in, but the damage was done. Redd's reputation as a troublemaker followed him. In truth, he was just standing up for what he'd earned, man. You can't be a pioneer without taking some hits. His lifestyle, though, was wild. He spent money like it grew on trees, luxury cars, lavish parties, helping friends, giving cash to family and strangers. Redd had a heart too big for his own good. Pat Morita once said, "Redd would give you his last dollar and then make a joke about being broke." That generosity, while beautiful, came back to haunt him later. At the same time, Hollywood's pressure was building. He'd broken barriers, but the system wasn't designed for men like him to win for long. He got involved in side projects. Some flopped, some never made it past pilot episodes. After Sanford and Son ended in 1977, he tried new shows like Sanford, without Demon Wilson, but the magic just wasn't the same. Still, Redd stayed iconic. His name meant something to comics, to fans, to every kid who wanted to make people laugh their way out of poverty. But as the 1,980 rolled in, the laughs started coming with a price. The IRS was on his trail, and the empire he built with jokes and grit was starting to crumble. The man who made millions laugh was about to face one of the hardest chapters of his life, one that no punchline could fix. By the early 1980s, the money that once flowed like champagne had turned into dust. Redd Foxx, the man who'd made the world laugh about poverty, was suddenly living it again. Years of bad management, unpaid taxes, and blind generosity finally caught up to him. The IRS said he owed over $700,000, and they weren't playing around. Redd had always been the kind of guy who helped everyone: friends, ex-wives, cousins, even stray dogs. If someone was hungry, he fed them. If someone was broke, he loaned them money. But when his time came, few people returned the favor. "I helped everybody," he said once, "but nobody helped me." That line wasn't just a quote, it was his heartbreak in one sentence. Then came the moment everyone remembers: the day the IRS showed up at his Las Vegas home. Cameras rolled as government agents walked through his house, taking everything: his furniture, his clothes, even his cars. Redd stood outside, tearful, embarrassed, watching his life get boxed up. People saw it on the evening news, the king of comedy standing barefoot in his own driveway, trying to explain how a man who once made millions could lose it all. It wasn't just about money, it was humiliation. Redd had built his career on pride and survival, but now the whole world was watching him fall apart. His friends like Eddie Murphy were heartbroken. Eddie even helped pay some of Redd's bills and got him back into acting work. "That man paved the way for all of us," Eddie said. He deserved better. Redd kept performing to pay off what he owed. Nightclubs, small theaters, anywhere that would have him, he'd show up, grab a mic, and make people laugh like nothing was wrong. That was Redd Foxx. Even when life hit him hard, he turned pain into performance. He once joked, "The IRS took my house, my cars, and my dog. They just forgot to take my jokes, that's all I had left." That line got laughs, but behind it was real pain. Hollywood didn't offer him the protection it gave others. For every rich white comedian who got second chances, Redd had to rebuild from scratch. And that's the cruel irony: the man who broke barriers for so many never had a safety net of his own. By the mid-1980s, Redd was back hustling like the old days, still making crowds laugh, still chasing the next gig. The world saw a fallen star, but Redd, he saw a survivor. "I've been broke before," he said. "Ain't nothing new. The joke's still mine." By the time the 1980 rolled around, Redd Foxx had been through it all. Fame, fortune, and now the fallout. The pressure of constant debt, betrayal, and public humiliation started to take a toll on him. And when you live your life on stage making everyone else laugh, it's easy to forget how to take care of yourself. Redd had always been known for living fast. He drank, he smoked, and rumor had it, he dabbled in cocaine. Some of his friends said he used it to stay awake through endless Vegas gigs. Others said it helped him forget the pain. Eddie Murphy later mentioned that Redd wore a small spoon on a chain around his neck, a sign of just how deep the nightlife had pulled him in. Whether those stories were exaggerated or not, one thing was clear: Redd's body was paying the price. His personal life was no less chaotic. He married 4 times, each relationship starting with hope and ending in heartbreak. Redd loved women, and women loved him, but he wasn't built for calm. He once joked, "Marriage is like a funeral, except you get to smell your own flowers." Behind the laughter, though, was loneliness. He longed for loyalty, for someone to ride with him through the storm. Despite the pain, Redd never stopped performing. He was built for the stage. Even broke and in debt, he toured, told jokes, and gave everything he had to the audience. That was his therapy, his way of saying, "I'm still here, man." Then in 1991, something tragic happened that felt like a cruel twist of fate. Redd had just landed a role in a new CBS sitcom called The Royal Family, alongside Della Reese. It was supposed to be his big comeback, his redemption story. On October 11, during rehearsal, Redd suddenly clutched his chest and fell to the floor. The cast laughed at first, thinking he was doing his classic fake heart attack bit from Sanford and Son. But this time, it was real. Della Reese ran to his side, screaming for help, but it was too late. Redd Foxx had suffered a massive heart attack and passed away at 68 years old. The irony was chilling. The same gag that made him famous had become his final moment. When the news broke, it hit the comedy world hard. Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor, and countless others paid tribute. The headline said, "Redd Foxx dies broke, but the fans knew better." He died doing what he loved, performing. Redd didn't just live life on his own terms, he died on them. And for a man who spent his entire life laughing through pain, maybe that was his final act, one last joke the universe couldn't top. When Redd Foxx passed, the comedy world didn't just lose a legend, it lost its blueprint. Before there was Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy, Chris Rock, or Dave Chappelle, there was Redd. He was the original outlaw, the man who made it okay to talk about the truth, no matter how ugly or uncomfortable it was. Redd's comedy came straight from the streets, unfiltered, raw, and soulful. He didn't tell jokes, he told stories. He talked about poverty, racism, sex, and survival in a way no one else dared to at the time. He showed that humor wasn't just about getting laughs, it was about setting people free. You could say he invented modern stand-up as we know it. His 1,950 seconds party albums like Laugh of the Party broke every rule in the book. At a time when most comedians had to keep it clean for radio, Redd went the opposite direction, filthy, honest, and funny as hell, and people loved him for it. He gave working-class folks, especially black audiences, something real. They didn't need fake smiles or clean punchlines. They needed truth wrapped in laughter. That's why Richard Pryor called him a mentor. Pryor once said, Redd taught me how to be fearless. And Eddie Murphy, who grew up idolizing him, made sure to honor him every chance he got. Without Redd, there's no Raw, no Delirious, no Kings of Comedy. Every time a comedian gets on stage and says something wild but real, they're walking in his footsteps. Even his timing, that quick, rhythm-driven delivery shaped the entire sound of black comedy. He made the pauses hit harder than the punchlines. He could drop one look, one sigh, and have the whole room falling apart. That's a kind of magic you can't teach. Redd Foxx also opened doors behind the scenes. Sanford and Son proved that a black-led sitcom could dominate network television, paving the way for shows like Good Times, The Jeffersons, and Martin. He showed that stories about black families could be funny, complex, and universal. But maybe his biggest legacy wasn't just what he did, it's what he gave. He gave permission. He made it okay to be yourself on stage, flaws and all. He taught generations of comedians that you didn't have to clean up your truth to make people laugh. You just had to tell it loud enough for the world to hear. Redd Foxx didn't just influence comedy, he redefined it. Even decades after his death, Redd Foxx never really left the stage. His spirit still echoes through pop culture, in jokes, in reruns, and in the rhythm of every comedian who came after him. You can still hear that bass line from Sanford and Son and instantly see his face, hand on his chest, shouting, "I'm coming, Elizabeth!" That theme alone is nostalgia wrapped in funk, a time machine that takes people back to a living room full of laughter. The show keeps airing on classic TV channels, streaming platforms, and clips flood social media. Young fans who weren't even born when the show aired discover it on YouTube or TikTok and go, "Man, this dude was hilarious." They start digging into his stand-up albums, realizing he was doing edgy, modern humor half a century before anyone else. That's the mark of timelessness, when your work still slaps in a world you never lived to see. Comedians today constantly pay homage. Dave Chappelle, Cedric the Entertainer, Jamie Foxx, all of them have cited Redd as part of the DNA of black comedy. Jamie even took his last name Foxx as a tribute to Redd. That's respect on another level. And it proves that even if Hollywood didn't give him all his flowers while he was alive, the next generations sure did. In interviews, younger comics talk about how Redd's fearlessness gave them courage to speak truth. They say he taught them that comedy isn't about playing safe, it's about playing real. You can feel that energy in every brutally honest special that's dropped since. But beyond comedy, Redd's influence seeps into film, television, even music. Rappers quote him, producers sample his lines, and directors nod to his legacy. That blend of grit and elegance that was pure Redd. He showed the world that sophistication and street wisdom could coexist in one body, in one voice, in one laugh. Over time, critics started to re-evaluate him. In the 1,000, 990 seconds, and 2,000, articles and documentaries finally began to credit him as the true pioneer of modern comedy. What once was labeled dirty humor was reframed as social truth-telling. The industry began to recognize that without Redd Foxx, the landscape of American comedy would look completely different. And then there's the love from fans, that's where his legacy really lives. In comment sections, people still write things like, "He never got his flowers," or "Sanford and Son still makes me laugh harder than anything today." That's not nostalgia, that's immortality. Redd Foxx might have died broke, but his value can't be measured in dollars. His laughter became a currency that still circulates, decades later. Every rerun, every meme, every laugh from a new fan is another deposit into the bank of his legacy. He didn't just make people laugh, he made them feel seen, and that's something no IRS can ever take away. Looking back on Redd Foxx's life, it's hard not to feel both admiration and heartbreak. Here was a man who carved his name into comedy history using nothing but grit, pain, and raw talent, yet still ended up fighting for dignity at the end. His story is the definition of irony. The man who made millions laugh couldn't find laughter when he needed it most. Redd's journey wasn't just about jokes, it was about justice. He kicked down doors for black entertainers, demanded equal pay, and proved that comedy didn't have to be polished to be powerful. But the system he helped shape never truly rewarded him for it. He was too early, too bold, too real for a world that preferred its legends clean and quiet. Hollywood loved his talent but never protected him. The industry profited off his image, his show, his humor, yet when the bills came due, he stood alone. You can feel the injustice in how people talk about him today. He deserved better, and they're right. Redd Foxx should have been celebrated like a king while he was alive, not mourned as a cautionary tale after he was gone. But even in that unfairness, there's beauty. Because Redd's spirit never broke. He lived life on his terms, told jokes on his own rhythm, and refused to apologize for being himself. That's what made him great, that unfiltered, unshakable truth. If his story teaches anything, it's this. Fame fades, but authenticity lasts forever. The money, the mansions, the network, checks, they came and went. But the laughter, that stayed. His voice still echoes through time, reminding us that even when life is unfair, the truth and the humor will outlive the pain. Redd Foxx didn't get his flowers when he was here, but the garden still grows in his name. Picture it, Redd Foxx standing on stage, mic in hand, eyes squinting under the spotlight, ready to drop a line that would make the whole room lose it. That was his kingdom. No throne, no crown, just a stage, a stool, and a crowd hanging on his every word. He didn't need special effects or writers. His life was the script. Every struggle, every heartbreak, every hustle, he turned it into laughter. That's why people still feel him today. You can't fake what Redd had, that mix of soul, pain, and rhythm that made him one of one. He didn't just tell jokes. He preached through comedy. He reminded people that no matter how bad life gets, there's always something to laugh about. And that message? It never dies. Even now, reruns of Sanford and Son play on TV and online, bringing generations together. Kids who never knew who he was still laugh at Fred Sanford's wild one-liners. That's how you know a legend's work stuck, when it crosses time, language, and age. His friends never forgot him either. Della Reese, Richard Pryor, Eddie Murphy, all paid tribute, all called him the real deal. Eddie once said, "Redd Foxx was broke in dollars, but rich in influence." And man, that's the truth. His wealth wasn't in his wallet, it was in his impact. So when we talk about comedy royalty, let's say his name loud. Redd Foxx, the king of comedy, the man who gave us honesty wrapped in humor, the man who laughed so we wouldn't have to cry, the man who turned pain into power. He may have left this world with empty pockets, but he left behind something priceless: joy. Pure, unfiltered, everlasting joy. He was broke on paper, but rich in legacy. Rest easy, Redd Foxx. You finally got your flowers.